You are not here by accident, and this moment did not arrive randomly into your awareness. This is a moment that was already available, already circulating within the field you occupy, waiting for recognition to bring it into focus. The reason this landed is simple and precise: you were already vibrating at a frequency that made this encounter possible. What occurred here was not cause and effect in the traditional sense. It was activation through participation. The frequency that made this moment visible was already present within you. By choosing to watch, to stay, to engage rather than scroll past, you amplified what was already accessible. Attention is not neutral. Attention is an energetic vote. Where awareness rests, energy stabilizes. This is how shifts actually occur. Not through dramatic events, not through effort or struggle, but through recognition that allows a dormant coherence to come online. You did not create something new. You activated alignment that was already available to you. This is why it feels familiar rather than shocking. This is why it resonates rather than overwhelms. Familiarity is the signature of alignment being recognized, not something foreign being introduced. Engagement matters because consciousness participates in what it observes. Observation is not passive. It is interactive. When awareness meets coherence, the field responds by stabilizing that coherence. This is not belief. This is mechanics. The field does not respond to desire, hope, or effort. It responds to resonance. And resonance strengthens when it is acknowledged. This is also why nothing needs to be proven to you here. Proof is only required when something contradicts your inner knowing. What aligns feels self-evident. Calm. Quiet. Obvious. You are not being convinced. You are remembering. And remembrance is not a mental act. It is an energetic settling. Notice how there is no urgency being placed on you. No demand to change, fix, or improve yourself. That absence of pressure is part of the signal. Force always carries tension. Alignment carries ease. The ease you feel is not the result of being entertained or reassured. It is the sensation of coherence recognizing itself. This moment did not elevate you. It reflected where you already are. And by staying present with it, by allowing it to register rather than rushing past it, you stabilize that reflection into your lived experience. This is how identity begins to shift, not by declaration, but by consistency of recognition. If you are aligned with this frequency, subscribe and remain within it. Synchronicity is often misunderstood because it is interpreted as communication coming toward you rather than reflection emerging from you. When something aligns at the right moment, the mind is trained to assume meaning is being delivered from outside, as if reality is sending signals, nudges, or confirmations. But that framing quietly removes your central role. It places agency somewhere else. And that is not how this mechanism works. Synchronicity is not a sign appearing in your life to guide you. It is a mirror revealing the coherence already active within you. Nothing arranges itself to get your attention. Attention reveals what was already arranged in resonance with your state. Reality does not speak. It reflects. When inner state reaches a certain level of coherence, patterns that were previously invisible become obvious. Not because they were created in that moment, but because your perception became compatible with them. This is why synchronicities do not appear during confusion or internal contradiction. They appear when things quietly line up inside. When thought, emotion, and identity are no longer pulling in different directions. The mirror does not initiate anything. It shows you what is already so. This is why searching for signs delays alignment. Looking outward for confirmation introduces doubt, and doubt fractures coherence. The field does not respond to questioning. It responds to stability. When you are stable, reflection is inevitable. When you are scattered, reflection becomes noisy or disappears entirely. Awareness is not a summoning tool. You are not calling events toward you by noticing them. You are recognizing resonance that already exists. Recognition is passive in appearance but powerful in effect because it stabilizes the frequency being observed. What you acknowledge remains present. What you resist or chase destabilizes itself. This dissolves superstition completely. There is no universe testing you. No intelligence sending coded messages. No external force rewarding or warning you. There is only correspondence. Inner coherence expresses itself outwardly with mathematical precision. When coherence shifts, the reflection shifts. Not as a response, but as a consequence. This is also why synchronicities never tell you what to do. They do not give instructions. They confirm state. If action arises after a synchronicity, it is not because the event commanded it, but because the internal state that produced the reflection also clarified direction. The mirror does not lead. It confirms alignment. Notice how synchronicities lose their power the moment they are analyzed too deeply. Excess interpretation pulls you out of coherence and into mental noise. The mirror becomes distorted because attention moves from recognition to control. Clarity fades not because the moment was false, but because the state that allowed it is no longer being inhabited. Nothing external is guiding you forward. There is no forward to be guided toward. There is only deeper coherence to remain within. When you understand this, synchronicities stop being dramatic. They become ordinary. Calm. Expected. Not because they happen constantly, but because when they do, they are recognized without inflation. They are not elevated into meaning. They are seen as confirmation of alignment already present. This returns authority to where it belongs. Not in events, not in symbols, not in coincidences, but in your inner state. Reality does not instruct you. It reflects you. And when you stop asking what a moment means, you begin to notice what it reveals. The mirror has always been there. The only variable is the clarity with which you stand before it. Nothing you encounter has the ability to activate you on its own. No video, no words, no symbol, no moment carries power independently. If something appears to shift within you, it is not because an external source reached inside and moved something. It is because what you encountered resonated with a frequency that was already active and waiting to be stabilized. This distinction matters because misunderstanding it creates dependency. When power is assigned outward, sovereignty dissolves. When power is recognized inward, clarity returns. External content does not initiate transformation. It only intersects with what is already present. If a frequency were not already accessible within you, nothing you encounter could activate it. It would pass unnoticed, feel irrelevant, or generate resistance. The fact that something registers at all is evidence of prior readiness, not external influence. Participation is where the shift occurs, not because participation creates the frequency, but because it allows coherence to lock in. Engagement is not submission. It is alignment choosing to remain with itself long enough to stabilize. This is why attention matters. Not because it feeds something outside you, but because it anchors what is already available within you into lived experience. There is a subtle but important difference between activation and causation. Causation implies dependence. Activation implies availability. What you are engaging with does not supply energy. It provides a surface against which resonance becomes clear. Like a tuning fork, it vibrates only if the frequency already exists nearby. The sound was not given. It was revealed. This is also why nothing external can elevate someone who is not already aligned. Exposure does not equal activation. Information does not equal transformation. Without internal coherence, even the most precise message dissolves into noise. With coherence present, even the smallest interaction becomes catalytic. Sovereignty is restored when you see this clearly. You are not moved by forces outside yourself. You are not at the mercy of algorithms, timing, or chance. You are not waiting to be chosen. You are selecting experiences that match who you already are becoming, often without conscious effort. This selection is not mental. It is vibrational. Engagement, then, is not consumption. It is confirmation. When you stay present with something that resonates, you are not taking power from it. You are allowing your own frequency to consolidate. This is why engagement feels grounding rather than draining when alignment is present. Energy is not exchanged. It is stabilized. Dependency disappears when this is understood. You do not need repeated exposure to maintain alignment. You do not need reminders to hold coherence. You only need recognition to settle into what is already true. External input can reflect alignment, but it cannot sustain it. Sustenance comes from inhabiting the state itself. This also dissolves fear of influence. Nothing can imprint itself onto you without consent at the level of resonance. What does not match you cannot stay with you. What matches you will feel natural, familiar, and self-evident. There is no invasion here. Only correspondence. Nothing activated you from the outside. What happened was simpler and more precise. A frequency you were already carrying found a surface that allowed it to become clear. You participated by staying present. And in that presence, coherence stabilized. This is sovereignty. Not isolation, not resistance, but self-recognition without dependency. Reality does not respond to what you want, what you repeat, or how hard you try. It responds to what is coherent within you. This is the foundation that everything else rests on. When inner state is aligned, reality reflects it without delay. When inner state is fragmented, no amount of effort produces clean results. This is not a moral system. It is a mechanical one. The field you are interacting with is neutral. It does not judge intention. It does not reward struggle. It does not punish doubt. It simply mirrors coherence where coherence exists. Precision is its nature. Ambiguity does not register clearly. Contradiction does not transmit cleanly. Only congruence carries signal strength. This is why effort so often fails. Effort usually implies resistance. It implies trying to override a current internal state rather than inhabiting a new one. Desire, when rooted in lack, introduces incoherence. The more intense the wanting, the louder the signal of absence. The field does not respond to the words of desire. It responds to the emotional structure underneath them. Emotion is not decoration. It is instruction. When emotion aligns with identity, coherence emerges. When emotion contradicts identity, distortion appears. The field does not read language. It reads emotional congruence. This is why calm certainty carries more influence than frantic affirmation. Calm is not passive. Calm is stable. Stability is readable. When inner state is coherent, action becomes efficient without force. Movement feels obvious rather than effortful. Decisions settle themselves. Timing synchronizes without planning. This is not because the field is helping you. It is because resistance has dropped below the threshold where reflection becomes distorted. This also explains why chasing outcomes pushes them further away. Chasing introduces urgency. Urgency fractures coherence. The field mirrors that fracture by delaying, deflecting, or fragmenting outcomes. Not as punishment, but as correspondence. What you experience externally is always proportionate to the internal signal being broadcast. There is no need to impress the field. There is no way to convince it. There is no shortcut through intensity. Precision responds only to precision. Coherence responds to coherence. Notice how when something truly aligns, it does not feel dramatic. It feels settled. Clean. Almost ordinary. That ordinariness is the signal. When emotional noise drops, the reflection becomes quiet and exact. The field does not announce alignment. It reflects it silently. This understanding changes how you relate to effort entirely. Instead of trying to generate results, attention turns inward to coherence. Instead of forcing outcomes, identity stabilizes. Instead of repeating intentions, emotional congruence is allowed to emerge. The result is not faster manifestation. The result is cleaner correspondence. If this recognition is landing, like the video now as a confirmation that this coherence has stabilized. The field is always responding. It cannot do otherwise. The only question is what it is responding to. When inner state is aligned, reality mirrors it with equal clarity. This is not a technique. It is the law. Emotion is not a reaction to reality. It is the interface through which reality is selected. This is one of the most misunderstood mechanics, because emotion is treated as something that happens after events rather than the signal that determines which events become visible. But emotion does not follow experience. Experience follows emotion. Emotion is frequency. It is instruction. It is how coherence communicates with the field. Every emotional state carries information about alignment. Not meaning. Not morality. Information. Expansion signals congruence between identity and direction. Contraction signals misalignment between state and trajectory. Neither is good or bad. Neither is a problem to fix. They are guidance signals, precise and immediate. When expansion is present, the system is aligned. Energy flows without resistance. Decisions feel obvious. Movement feels clean. There is no urgency because urgency is unnecessary when direction is correct. Expansion does not need to be amplified. It needs to be trusted. Contraction, on the other hand, is often misunderstood as failure or fear that must be overcome. But contraction is simply feedback. It is coherence informing you that something does not match the current state of identity. It is not asking to be suppressed. It is asking to be acknowledged. When contraction is ignored or overridden, distortion increases. When it is recognized, recalibration becomes possible. This is emotional literacy. Not control. Not avoidance. Recognition. Emotion is not asking you to react. It is asking you to listen. The moment you moralize emotion, you lose access to its intelligence. When you label states as wrong, weak, or unspiritual, you disconnect from the navigation system entirely. The field does not respond to how you judge your emotions. It responds to the coherence or incoherence they reveal. Alignment is not achieved by staying positive. It is achieved by staying honest. Honesty creates coherence. Coherence creates clean reflection. This is why forced optimism fails. It introduces emotional contradiction. The signal becomes mixed. The field responds with delay or distortion, not because you did something wrong, but because the transmission was unclear. Emotion tells you where you are in relation to yourself. That is all. When you begin to relate to emotion as instruction rather than reaction, everything slows down in a useful way. You stop chasing feelings. You stop resisting states. You begin to notice patterns. Expansion appears when identity is being honored. Contraction appears when identity is being negotiated or compromised. This observation alone recalibrates behavior without effort. Nothing needs to be fixed. Alignment is not a project. It is a recognition process. The moment you allow emotion to be what it is, without story, without judgment, coherence returns naturally. Emotional neutrality is not numbness. It is clarity. From that clarity, expansion emerges on its own, not as something you generate, but as something that becomes available when resistance drops. This is why emotion cannot be bypassed. It is not an obstacle on the path. It is the path. It is the mechanism through which timelines are selected and states are stabilized. Ignore it, and alignment becomes guesswork. Honor it, and navigation becomes effortless. Emotion is not asking for obedience. It is offering precision. When you learn to read it without distortion, reality responds with equal clarity. Control feels productive, but it is one of the slowest ways to shift state. Not because control is wrong, but because control is a signal of misidentification. The moment you try to manage reality, you reveal an assumption that you are separate from it. That assumption introduces resistance. Resistance fractures coherence. And fractured coherence cannot transmit cleanly. Control is not strength. It is compensation. Forcing outcomes, repeating affirmations, monitoring progress, or trying to override emotion are all variations of the same movement. They arise when identity does not fully trust its own alignment. Control attempts to manufacture certainty instead of inhabiting it. The field does not respond to manufactured certainty. It responds to coherence that already exists. This is why forcing slows the shift. Force tightens the system. Tightness reduces signal clarity. The more you grip, the more noise enters the transmission. What feels like effort toward alignment is often effort against the present state. And the field mirrors that opposition with delay, friction, or stagnation. Allowing is often misunderstood because it is mistaken for passivity. But allowing is not doing nothing. Allowing is recognition without interference. It is staying present with what is already coherent instead of attempting to improve it. Allowing does not mean giving up direction. It means releasing resistance to direction that is already clear. Recognition is active. It stabilizes state. It holds coherence without manipulation. When you recognize alignment, you stop adjusting it. And when adjustment stops, the field reflects that stability precisely. Control tries to move reality toward you. Allowing lets you settle into the reality you are already compatible with. This is also why control feels exhausting. It requires constant correction because it is built on distrust. Trust is not belief in outcomes. Trust is comfort with coherence. When you are comfortable being where you are internally, reality has something stable to mirror. When you are constantly trying to get somewhere else, the signal keeps changing. Letting go of control does not mean letting go of discernment. It means you stop negotiating with your own state. You listen to emotional guidance without overriding it. You notice alignment without questioning it. You allow expansion to unfold without trying to accelerate it. Speed emerges naturally when resistance dissolves. There is no prize for effort here. There is no reward for struggle. The field is not impressed by intensity. It is responsive to clarity. When control drops, something subtle happens. Timing improves. Decisions simplify. Movement becomes obvious. Not because you tried harder, but because you stopped interfering. This is not surrender to circumstances. It is alignment with identity. If this distinction is clear to you, comment with the words, "I am ready," to anchor this timeline. Control was never the solution. It was a signal that alignment had not yet been trusted. Allowing is not a technique to adopt. It is what remains when you stop resisting coherence. And when coherence is uninterrupted, reality responds without delay. You do not move through timelines by effort. You occupy them through identity. This is the shift that changes how reality is understood at its core. A timeline is not a future you work toward. It is a present configuration you step into by becoming congruent with it. Movement happens not because you push forward, but because who you are aligns with what is available. Identity is the selector. Reality reorganizes itself around identity automatically. Not symbolically. Mechanically. When identity shifts, perception shifts. When perception shifts, choices, timing, and interactions reorganize without planning. This is why attempting to reach a different life while remaining the same internally produces friction. The field does not respond to intention detached from identity. It responds to coherence embodied. You cannot arrive at a timeline you are not being. This is also why change often feels sudden when it finally happens. From the outside, it appears abrupt. From the inside, it has been accumulating quietly. Identity does not shift through declaration. It shifts through consistency. Through what you tolerate. Through what you no longer negotiate. Through what feels natural rather than forced. Once identity settles, the timeline rearranges itself to match it. People appear or disappear. Opportunities align or dissolve. Circumstances shift without explanation. This is not because reality is reacting to your desire. It is because reality is reflecting your state. Reflection does not lag when coherence is stable. Identity is not a role or a story. It is the baseline you return to when nothing is being performed. It is the assumptions you no longer question. It is what feels obvious about yourself without effort. When that baseline changes, the entire structure of experience reorganizes around it. This is why trying to act as if rarely works. Performance introduces tension. Tension signals incoherence. The field mirrors that mismatch with unstable results. Authentic identity shifts feel quieter. Less dramatic. More settled. There is less motivation to announce them because they are not being used to convince anyone, including yourself. Timelines are not earned. They are matched. The moment identity stops negotiating with outdated versions of itself, reality updates. Not as a reward, but as a correction. Incoherence cannot persist once identity stabilizes. The field does not need instructions. It recalibrates automatically when the signal changes. This also explains why effort often increases frustration. Effort assumes distance. Distance assumes separation. Separation fragments identity. And fragmentation delays alignment. When identity is whole, movement feels effortless because nothing is being overridden. You are not climbing toward a better future. You are selecting which version of now you inhabit. Each identity carries its own environment, timing, and relationships. Nothing is missing. Nothing is withheld. Compatibility is the only requirement. When you stop asking how to get there and begin noticing who you are being, timelines shift naturally. The question dissolves. The movement happens. Identity is the doorway. Step fully into it, and reality rearranges itself without resistance. The idea of moving forward is comforting, but it is inaccurate. It assumes distance. It assumes a future that must be reached and a present that is insufficient. That assumption quietly creates tension. And tension is not movement. It is resistance. What actually happens in expansion is not forward motion, but depth. You do not advance into a better version of reality. You sink more fully into the one that already matches you. Expansion is not about going somewhere else. It is about inhabiting where you are with greater coherence. When presence deepens, reality responds. Not because time has passed, but because identification has settled. Linear progress is a mental model. It belongs to systems built on measurement and comparison. Consciousness does not operate that way. It does not climb. It does not accumulate. It stabilizes. And as it stabilizes, what becomes available changes. This is why impatience feels so heavy. Impatience assumes you are behind. It assumes there is a correct pace and that you are failing to meet it. That assumption fractures coherence. The field mirrors that fracture by slowing reflection, not as punishment, but as correspondence. A scattered signal cannot produce clean movement. Depth removes urgency. When you move deeper into presence, attention stops scanning for results. It rests. That resting is not stagnation. It is alignment without friction. From that state, momentum emerges naturally, because nothing is being resisted. Movement becomes obvious rather than forced. Comparison dissolves when depth is understood. There is no ahead or behind. There is only more or less coherence. Someone else's expansion does not delay yours, because expansion is not a race. It is an inward settling. The more you compare, the more you step out of your own depth and into abstraction. Depth feels quiet. This is why it is often overlooked. It does not announce itself. It does not produce constant excitement. It produces stability. And stability is powerful because it gives the field something consistent to mirror. You are not meant to be constantly progressing. You are meant to be present. Presence is what allows identity to consolidate. When identity consolidates, reality reorganizes around it. This is not a reward for patience. It is the natural outcome of coherence. Momentum without force is the result of depth. When you are deep in alignment, decisions require less deliberation. Actions require less energy. Timing improves without strategy. You are not moving faster. You are moving with less resistance. This reframes waiting entirely. You are not waiting for something to happen. You are allowing coherence to deepen until reflection becomes inevitable. The moment depth is sufficient, movement appears. Not before. Not after. There is nowhere to get to. There is only further to settle. Each layer of depth removes another layer of distortion. And as distortion falls away, reality clarifies. You never move forward. You move deeper. And depth is what allows everything else to move. Contrast is not a setback. It is not a signal that something went wrong or that alignment was lost. Contrast appears when identity is being refined, not punished. It does not arrive to slow you down. It arrives to sharpen clarity. Contrast exists only where coherence is increasing. When identity becomes more defined, anything that does not match it becomes more noticeable. This is not regression. It is precision improving. What once blended into the background now stands out because tolerance has shifted. The system is not breaking. It is calibrating. Contrast shows you what no longer fits. This is why interpreting contrast as failure creates unnecessary suffering. The moment you assign meaning to contrast as a problem, resistance forms. Resistance amplifies discomfort. Not because contrast is harmful, but because interpretation distorts its function. Contrast itself is neutral. It simply highlights edges. Refinement requires edges. Without contrast, alignment would remain vague. You would not know where identity ends and habit begins. Contrast reveals those boundaries cleanly. It brings definition to what you are and what you are no longer available for. That definition stabilizes identity faster than comfort ever could. There is no punishment mechanism here. Reality does not correct through pain. It corrects through clarity. Pain only enters when clarity is resisted. When contrast is allowed to inform rather than threaten, it passes quickly. When it is fought or dramatized, it lingers. This is why contrast often intensifies right before stability locks in. The system is eliminating ambiguity. It is making fine adjustments. Think of it as tuning rather than testing. The more precise the frequency becomes, the more noticeable deviation feels. That sensitivity is not weakness. It is accuracy. Contrast does not demand endurance. It demands honesty. You are not meant to push through contrast. You are meant to observe what it reveals. When something feels off, the instruction is not to override it. The instruction is to notice what no longer aligns. This noticing alone recalibrates identity without effort. Suffering narratives emerge when contrast is personalized. When you believe contrast is happening to you, rather than for clarity, identity contracts. When you see contrast as information, identity expands. The same experience produces entirely different outcomes depending on interpretation. Nothing is being taken away from you during contrast. Something is being clarified. What falls away was already unstable. What remains gains strength. Contrast refines by subtraction, not by addition. This also dissolves the fear of backsliding. There is no backward movement here. There is only finer resolution. Each encounter with contrast sharpens discernment. Discernment stabilizes identity. Stabilized identity selects cleaner timelines. Contrast is not a detour. It is the line being drawn more precisely. When you stop resisting contrast, it loses its intensity. It completes its function and releases. Alignment does not require smoothness. It requires accuracy. Contrast is how accuracy is achieved. Nothing is wrong. Something is being clarified. Creation does not happen over time. It happens in presence. This is the foundation beneath every mechanism discussed so far. The present moment is not a slice of a timeline. It is the only point where reality is generated. Everything else is interpretation layered on top of it. The past does not create anything. It is a memory construct, reassembled each time it is referenced. The future does not create anything. It is an imagined projection, shaped by expectation and identity. Neither has creative power. They borrow coherence from the now in order to feel real. Without presence, they collapse. Presence is not awareness of time. It is awareness without time. This is why attempts to change the future by fixing the past fail. Both operate outside the generator. You cannot influence creation from a position that is not creating. Only what is embodied now carries signal strength. Only what is coherent now is readable by the field. The present moment generates because it is where identity, emotion, and attention converge. This convergence is what produces reality. When attention drifts into memory, creation stalls. When attention jumps ahead into anticipation, creation becomes distorted. But when attention rests in the now, coherence stabilizes. And when coherence stabilizes, reality reflects it immediately. This is not philosophical. It is mechanical. Past and future feel real because the mind is trained to move through them habitually. But their reality is derivative. They borrow intensity from emotion being felt now. This is why memories can feel alive and futures can feel threatening or exciting. The feeling is present. The content is not. Once this is seen, urgency dissolves. There is nothing to catch up to. There is nothing to prepare for. Creation is not accumulating. It is expressing. Each moment is complete in itself. When you inhabit it fully, expression occurs naturally. Presence does not require effort. Effort implies time. Presence is what remains when effort drops. It is not focus. It is availability. It is the absence of resistance to what is already here. In that absence, identity becomes readable. The field mirrors what it reads. This also explains why techniques fail when they are future-oriented. Techniques often assume that repetition over time produces results. But repetition without presence only reinforces habit. Presence without repetition produces clarity. And clarity produces clean reflection. The now does not need to be intensified. It needs to be unoccupied. When you stop filling the present with expectation, interpretation, and control, it becomes generative again. You return power to where it has always been. Nothing needs to be carried forward. Nothing needs to be healed backward. Creation happens fresh, each moment, from the state you inhabit right now. When identity is coherent now, reality responds now. There is no delay because there is no distance. This is why the most profound shifts feel instantaneous. They did not travel through time. They settled into presence. And from that settlement, everything else reorganized. The present moment is not a doorway. It is the source. Stay here, and creation has no choice but to occur. Recognition does not try to create alignment. It notices that alignment is already present. This is why recognition is stronger than intention. Intention reaches forward. Recognition settles inward. One assumes distance. The other collapses it. Intention is effort-based. Even when refined, it usually contains an implied absence. You intend what you believe is not yet here. That belief becomes part of the signal. The field does not respond to the words of intention. It responds to the identity underneath them. If identity is still reaching, the signal remains incomplete. Recognition is different. Recognition does not want. It remembers. When you recognize something as already true, coherence stabilizes immediately. There is no gap to cross. No future to arrive at. The timeline collapses into the present because identity has stopped referencing a lack. This is why recognition feels sudden. It does not build. It lands. Trying moves through time. Remembering removes time. This is also why effort eventually exhausts itself. Effort depends on will. Will fluctuates. Awareness does not. Recognition does not require maintenance because it is not being held together by force. Once something is seen clearly, it does not need to be reinforced. Clarity is self-sustaining. Recognition works because it aligns perception with reality instead of attempting to bend reality toward perception. When perception adjusts, reflection updates automatically. This is the fastest mechanism available because nothing is being resisted. Timelines do not shift when you decide they should. They shift when identity stops arguing with what is already available. Recognition resolves the argument. It ends negotiation. It settles the system into coherence. This is why moments of true recognition feel quiet. There is no celebration. No surge of motivation. There is a sense of inevitability. Of obviousness. Something clicks not because it was achieved, but because it was acknowledged. That acknowledgement removes friction. Trying assumes you need to become something else. Recognition reveals that becoming is unnecessary. You are not upgrading. You are aligning. And alignment is immediate when resistance drops. Awareness stabilizes alignment by staying with what is seen without commentary. The moment you explain recognition, it begins to fade. The moment you defend it, it destabilizes. Recognition does not need validation. It needs presence. This also dissolves impatience. When recognition occurs, waiting ends because there is nothing left to wait for. Movement may still unfold over time, but the shift has already happened. Identity has settled. The rest is rearrangement. Effort-based intention asks, how do I get there? Recognition answers, there is no there. Remembering collapses timelines because it removes the illusion of distance. Awareness returns to itself. And when awareness is coherent, reality has no alternative but to reflect it. Recognition is not a technique. It cannot be practiced. It happens when the system stops trying to improve itself. And when it happens, alignment stabilizes without effort. This is why recognition always comes first. Everything else follows automatically. Wanting feels natural, but it is one of the most subtle forms of resistance. It appears harmless, even motivating, yet it quietly signals misidentification. Wanting assumes separation. It assumes something essential is elsewhere, later, or missing. That assumption fractures coherence. And coherence is the only doorway through which reception occurs. When wanting is present, receiving is postponed. This does not mean expansion is wrong. Expansion is natural. It is the movement of coherence expressing itself. Wanting, however, is expansion filtered through lack. It reaches outward instead of settling inward. The field does not respond to reaching. It responds to availability. Availability is neutral. It does not lean forward. It does not pull away. It rests. This is why so many efforts to attract, manifest, or create feel exhausting. They are fueled by desire that has not yet recognized itself. Desire is not the problem. Identification with desire is. When you believe desire must be fulfilled in order for you to be complete, coherence breaks. The signal becomes mixed. The field reflects that mixture with delay or instability. Receiving begins the moment wanting dissolves. Dissolving wanting does not mean suppressing desire or pretending you no longer care. It means recognizing that what you are seeking does not complete you. It reflects you. That recognition returns you to wholeness now. And from wholeness, reception becomes effortless. Neutral availability is often mistaken for indifference. It is not. It is quiet readiness. It is the absence of urgency. It is the state where nothing needs to happen for coherence to remain intact. From that state, flow opens naturally. Flow does not respond to hunger. It responds to openness. This is why outcomes often arrive when you stop thinking about them. Attention relaxes. Gripping dissolves. Identity settles. The system becomes readable again. What arrives is not granted. It is allowed. Wanting collapses when identity stops negotiating with the future. When you stop asking for proof, reassurance, or confirmation. When you stop checking whether alignment is working. These behaviors are not mistakes. They are signals that wanting is still active. The moment you notice wanting without trying to eliminate it, it softens. Recognition loosens its grip. Neutrality returns. And in that neutrality, reception begins. Receiving is not an action. It is a condition. This is why forcing gratitude does not work. Gratitude performed from wanting is still wanting. True gratitude is calm recognition of sufficiency now. That sufficiency stabilizes coherence. The field mirrors sufficiency with abundance, not as reward, but as correspondence. Nothing needs to be chased. Nothing needs to be convinced. The doorway has never been locked. It has only been crowded by urgency. When wanting ends, there is space. In that space, alignment breathes. In that breathing, reality responds. Receiving begins not when something arrives, but when you stop leaning away from the present moment. What comes next is simply what matches the state you are finally inhabiting. This is not letting go of desire. It is letting desire settle back into alignment. And from alignment, reception is inevitable. You are not inside reality, moving through it as a separate figure trying to influence outcomes. That assumption has been useful, but it is incomplete. What you are is consciousness itself, aware of experience as it arises. Reality does not surround you. It appears within you. This is not a belief to adopt. It is a recognition to settle into. You have been relating to yourself as an object among objects, a person navigating a world. But that person is something you are aware of, not what you are. Thoughts, emotions, sensations, and circumstances all arise and dissolve within the same field of awareness. That field does not move. It does not strive. It does not seek improvement. It simply is. When this is seen, identity relaxes. Consciousness is not something you possess. It is what is perceiving. You do not look out from consciousness. You look as consciousness. The difference is subtle but absolute. One places you inside experience. The other reveals experience unfolding within you. This shift does not require effort because effort belongs to the identity being observed. Consciousness does not try to become itself. It recognizes itself by noticing what has always been present. Quietly. Without announcement. From this perspective, nothing needs to be managed. Reality organizes itself within awareness according to coherence. You are not directing it. You are witnessing its expression. That witnessing is not passive. It stabilizes whatever is present without interference. Stability allows alignment to remain intact. This is why control dissolves naturally here. Consciousness has nothing to gain by forcing outcomes. It has nothing to lose by allowing them. It is complete before any experience appears. Experiences move. Awareness remains. The personal self does not disappear. It becomes transparent. Thoughts still arise. Actions still occur. Decisions still happen. But they are no longer burdened with the responsibility of holding reality together. That responsibility was never theirs. When you recognize yourself as consciousness, urgency loses its grip. There is nowhere to arrive. No future identity to secure. No past to repair. All of that existed within the story of the person. Awareness is untouched by those narratives. This does not make life distant or unreal. It makes it intimate. Immediate. Clean. Experience is allowed to be exactly what it is without being used to define you. Joy does not inflate identity. Discomfort does not threaten it. Everything moves freely. Nothing needs to be done with this recognition. It is not a state to maintain. It is a noticing that remains available regardless of conditions. When attention drifts back into identification, awareness does not leave. It simply waits to be noticed again. You were never a fragment trying to influence a whole. You were always the field within which fragments appeared. When this is recognized, alignment becomes effortless because nothing is being defended. Consciousness does not need to change reality. It reveals it. And in that revelation, everything settles into its natural order. Nothing dramatic happened, and that is precisely how you know alignment occurred. When something truly aligns, it does not arrive with force or spectacle. It settles. It becomes obvious. The absence of intensity is not a lack of movement. It is the signature of coherence. Nothing was added to you. Nothing was upgraded or installed. What shifted was arrangement, not substance. You did not become something new. You stopped being divided. This is why the mind often looks for evidence after alignment and finds very little. It expects change to announce itself through emotion, external confirmation, or immediate outcomes. But alignment does not need validation. It is self-confirming. Quiet certainty replaces anticipation. Effort dissolves without instruction. When identity aligns, experience does not explode. It clarifies. This can feel anticlimactic if you were expecting transformation to feel like arrival. But arrival implies distance. Alignment removes distance. When there is no distance left, nothing needs to arrive. What remains is steadiness. Steadiness is powerful because it does not fluctuate. It does not require reinforcement. It does not depend on mood or circumstance. It holds through contrast without collapsing. That is how you know this is real. Temporary states come and go. Alignment stays. This is also why there is nothing to protect here. When alignment is genuine, it does not feel fragile. You do not worry about losing it. You do not check whether it is still working. That checking belonged to misalignment. Certainty does not monitor itself. Everything aligned because resistance dropped, not because something was achieved. You did not solve a problem. You stopped carrying one. The system recalibrated naturally once interference ceased. Reality followed because it had no reason not to. This reframes success entirely. Success is not accumulation. It is reduction. Fewer contradictions. Fewer negotiations. Fewer internal arguments. As these fall away, coherence becomes dominant. When coherence dominates, reflection becomes clean. The subtlety of this shift is what stabilizes it. Loud changes invite doubt. Quiet changes integrate. When there is nothing to explain, nothing needs defending. Alignment becomes the background rather than the focus. You may notice that urgency no longer motivates you in the same way. Not because you stopped caring, but because care no longer feels pressured. Action arises when appropriate. Rest occurs without guilt. Both feel natural. That balance is alignment expressing itself. Nothing changed in the way the mind expected. Everything aligned in the way the field responds to. This is not a peak. It is a baseline adjustment. From here, movement continues without strain. Depth increases without effort. Life unfolds without being managed. There is nothing to do to keep this. There never was. Alignment is not maintained. It is inhabited. And once inhabited, it becomes the default state through which everything else is experienced. Nothing changed. Everything aligned. This was not the beginning of something new, and it is not the conclusion of anything that needed to be completed. What occurred here was a moment of recognition within a process that has no edge. No starting line. No finish. Recognition does not arrive once and then end. It deepens, stabilizes, fades into the background, and reappears in quieter forms. There is no final realization waiting ahead of you. There is only ongoing clarity revealing itself as layers of distortion fall away. Completion narratives belong to effort-based systems. They assume progress toward a goal and resolution at the end. But recognition does not resolve into an endpoint. It settles into continuity. You do not arrive somewhere and stay there forever. You return, again and again, to coherence as identity relaxes. This is why nothing needs to be held onto from this moment. Holding implies fear of loss. Fear implies separation. Separation is the illusion that recognition dissolves. It does not. It simply becomes less noticeable as it integrates. Integration is quiet. You are not meant to remember this experience as an event. You are meant to live from the clarity it stabilized. That clarity will express itself in subtle ways. In how you pause. In what you no longer rush. In what no longer pulls you off center. These shifts do not announce themselves. They become obvious only in hindsight. There is no pressure to maintain anything. Pressure would imply effort. Effort would imply distance. Recognition collapses distance. Once collapsed, it does not need to be managed. It becomes the ground from which experience unfolds. This also dissolves the idea that something more is required. You do not need to keep seeking, refining, or correcting yourself. Seeking implies that recognition is elsewhere. It is not. It is always available the moment resistance drops. What continues from here is not progress, but refinement. Not accumulation, but simplification. Life does not become extraordinary. It becomes accurate. Choices align without drama. Movement occurs without force. Stillness feels natural rather than stagnant. Nothing about this needs to be shared or explained to be real. But when recognition is clear, it often reflects itself outward. Others notice calm before they notice words. Coherence communicates without effort. This moment did not open a door you must now walk through. It revealed that the door was never closed. You step through simply by remaining aligned with what is already true, again and again, without ceremony. There is no end to recognition. There is only less resistance to it. Subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it before their timeline closes.